Have you ever stopped and asked yourself why you constantly feel like you're not enough, even when the world tells you otherwise? Why no matter how hard you work, how much you give, or how many battles you fight, there's a quiet voice inside that whispers, you could do more. You should do more. You're still falling short? That voice isn't just a passing thought. It's a sign, a signal that somewhere along the way, you've started undervaluing yourself without even realizing it. And the cost is far greater than missing a promotion or letting someone else take credit for your work. It's the slow, invisible erosion of your dreams, your confidence, and the life you were meant to live. Every time you doubt your worth, every time you shrink to fit into someone else's expectations, a part of your potential silently slips away. You settle, you compromise, you wait, and the world, unknowingly, takes a little more than it should from the person you are at your core. Imagine the weight of living every day convinced that your best isn't enough. Think about the opportunities you silently let pass because you don't believe you deserve them. Think about the dreams you abandoned because you thought you were too small, too inexperienced, or too flawed to pursue them. Now imagine the life you could live if that quiet, undermining voice was replaced with one that said, "You are enough. You are capable. You are worthy." Imagine waking up every morning feeling that surge of confidence that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation, a deep, unshakable knowledge that your presence, your actions, your very existence matters. That is the reward of recognizing the truth. That is the promise of understanding the signs you've been undervaluing yourself. It isn't easy to face. It requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to look at the parts of yourself you've been ignoring, dismissing, or minimizing for years. But once you do, once you see it clearly, the shift is profound. You begin to understand that every no you swallowed, every compliment you brushed off, every challenge you avoided wasn't just a momentary lapse. It was part of a pattern of self-limitation that has kept you from claiming the life, respect, and recognition you deserve. And here's the truth. You have the power to change that pattern. You have the power to start valuing yourself in ways that ripple through every choice, every relationship, every decision you make. By paying attention now, by recognizing even the smallest signs that you have been diminishing your own worth, you open the door to transformation. You begin to see yourself not through the lens of fear or comparison, but through the lens of possibility, strength, and unapologetic worthiness. This journey isn't about arrogance or selfishness. It's about reclaiming what is inherently yours: respect, love, confidence, and the freedom to live a life aligned with your true potential. And that is why you must stay with this. Because in the moments ahead, you will uncover truths that could quietly, profoundly, and permanently change the way you see yourself and the way the world sees you. It starts here. It starts now. The life you deserve is waiting for you to recognize it. One of the clearest signs that you might be undervaluing yourself is the constant need to please others, to bend, adjust, and give until there's nothing left for yourself. It's a quiet pattern that hides behind kindness, generosity, and the desire to be liked. But beneath it lies something far more dangerous: a belief that your worth is tied to the approval of others. Every time you say yes when your heart wants to say no, every time you put someone else's comfort above your own, you reinforce the lie that your needs, your time, your voice are secondary. You convince yourself that you must shrink, that your opinions aren't important, that your presence is only valuable if it serves someone else. And the emotional toll is invisible yet crushing. It builds slowly, leaving you exhausted, unfulfilled, and doubting whether you even have the right to ask for what you deserve. Think about it. How many times have you ignored your own desires to make someone else happy? How often have you sacrificed rest, energy, or opportunity just to avoid discomfort, confrontation, or disappointment? Each time the message you send to yourself is subtle but clear. Your life, your dreams, your happiness are secondary. Your courage, your voice, your choices belong to someone else before they belong to you. And yet deep inside, you feel the tension, the ache of knowing that you are capable of more, deserving of more, meant for more. That tension is your compass, pointing to the places where you've been quietly undervaluing yourself without realizing it. It's not about rejecting empathy or abandoning care for others. It's about recognizing the boundary between generosity and self-erasure. between kindness and self-neglect. You are allowed to give without losing yourself. You are allowed to support without surrendering your identity. You are allowed to say no without guilt and to honor your own needs without shame. When you start doing this, a profound transformation begins. Suddenly, the energy you've been pouring into constant accommodation starts to flow back into your own life. You reclaim time, focus, and confidence. You start to see that the world doesn't shrink when you prioritize yourself, it expands. Your value doesn't diminish, it radiates. There's a psychological truth at work here. Our brains are wired to respond to patterns. When you repeatedly put others first at the expense of yourself, you teach your mind that your worth is conditional, fragile, and dependent on external validation. But the opposite is just as powerful. When you choose yourself, when you set boundaries, when you honor your own needs, you train your mind to recognize that your worth is inherent, non-negotiable, and undeniable. That shift changes everything. It changes how you see your relationships, your career, your goals, and most importantly, yourself. The moment you decide to stop shrinking for others is the moment you step into the version of yourself that knows its value. Every choice you make from this place of self-respect strengthens your identity, builds courage, and reclaims the power you've been quietly giving away. This isn't a distant theoretical idea. It is real, immediate, and available to you right now. Begin with one decision today. One no that honors your needs. One boundary that protects your energy. One act of courage that affirms your worth. Each small act compounds, rewiring your mind and soul to recognize that you are not secondary, you are not optional, and you are far more valuable than you have been told to believe. If you find yourself brushing off compliments, minimizing your achievements, or feeling uncomfortable when someone acknowledges your efforts, this is another unmistakable sign that you are undervaluing yourself. It might feel harmless to shrug, to say it was nothing, or anyone could have done it, but each time you dismiss recognition, you are sending a silent message to yourself. What I do, who I am, what I create, none of it truly matters. The irony is cruel. You pour energy into work, relationships, and personal growth, yet you refuse to allow yourself the very reward you deserve, the acknowledgement of your own value. Science tells us that internalizing positive feedback strengthens confidence and reinforces motivation, but when we habitually reject praise, we deny our minds the opportunity to see ourselves as capable and worthy. Every compliment turned away is a tiny refusal to accept that you are enough, right here, right now. Think of the subtle ways this manifests in your life. Perhaps you hesitate to tell someone about a success because you fear being seen as arrogant. Maybe you laugh off achievements in conversations or compare your accomplishments to those of others to downplay their significance. Every time your brain internalizes a pattern that keeps self-worth tethered to modesty, or worse, to invisibility. This habit doesn't just mute your confidence, it erodes it. You begin to believe that no matter what you do, no recognition, no matter how sincere, could ever truly belong to you. And with that belief comes a quiet resignation, a sense that you must always prove yourself, yet never allow yourself to be seen. But what if you allowed yourself to receive? What if for a moment you truly accepted that your work, your choices, and your presence have value simply because you exist? Allow yourself to feel the truth of a compliment, to sit with it, to let it touch something deep inside. This is not vanity or arrogance. It is reclamation. It is the act of telling your mind and your soul that you are worthy of acknowledgement, that your contributions are real, and that your efforts matter. The smallest shift, saying thank you instead of minimizing, pausing to acknowledge a victory instead of dismissing it, can begin to break years, even decades, of self-erasure. Psychologically, this is powerful because the brain responds to repeated affirmation, both external and internal. When you start accepting recognition, your mind rewires itself to believe in your competence and value. Your inner voice changes from one of doubt to one of confidence. You begin to notice opportunities that were previously invisible, doors that were previously closed, and possibilities that were previously unclaimed. Each time you allow yourself to internalize praise, you reinforce the reality that you are capable, deserving, and inherently valuable. The transformation begins not in grand gestures, but in these small acts of acceptance. Let yourself feel pride in your work. Let yourself sit in the glow of acknowledgement without guilt. Let yourself be seen and appreciated because you are not asking for permission to exist. You are affirming a truth that has always been yours. Each moment of self-recognition chips away at the invisible barrier of undervaluation, building strength, courage, and the unwavering knowledge that your worth is undeniable. Allow this practice to become your daily ritual and watch as your life expands, not because the world changes, but because you have finally learned to honor the reality that you and all that you are truly matter. Another subtle but powerful sign that you are undervaluing yourself is the constant comparison to others. You look around and see someone achieving, thriving, or receiving recognition, and instead of celebrating their success, you feel small, inadequate, or left behind. Comparison is a trap, a mental loop that convinces you that your worth is dependent on someone else's performance, that your life can only be measured against theirs. The truth is that no one else's journey can define yours. No one else's victories diminish your potential. And yet, when you measure your value against the accomplishments of others, you unknowingly reinforce a belief that you are not enough, that you must constantly compete for validation, and that your unique talents are less important than someone else's shine. Consider the cost of this mindset. Every moment spent in comparison is energy stolen from self-belief, from ambition, from the pursuit of your own path. It creates a cycle of envy, self-doubt, and frustration that drains confidence and clouds clarity. You may think comparison is motivation, but it is often the opposite. It is self-sabotage disguised as ambition. Your mind begins to focus on gaps, weaknesses, and limitations, while the immense potential within you goes unnoticed. The paradox is painful. You see the success of others and assume it is out of reach, when in reality, your own path is rich with possibilities you have yet to explore. Every comparison is a silent confirmation that you are smaller than you truly are. To break this pattern, you must shift the lens through which you see yourself. Begin by recognizing that each person's journey is unique, shaped by circumstances, choices, and opportunities that do not define your own worth. Your value is not negotiable, not relative, and not determined by someone else's achievements. Every skill you have cultivated, every effort you have made, every challenge you have overcome belongs entirely to you. These are your victories, your lessons, your growth, and they are enough. When you focus on your own path, not as a point of comparison, but as a territory to conquer, you unlock the freedom to pursue what matters most to you, unhindered by the illusion that someone else's life is the benchmark for your worth. Psychology shows that constant comparison activates feelings of inadequacy and lowers self-esteem, reinforcing negative self-beliefs. But when you consciously practice gratitude for your own progress, acknowledgement of your efforts, and pride in your achievements, you retrain your mind. You begin to internalize the truth: you are capable, your journey is valuable, and your life does not need validation from anyone else to be meaningful. Every small step you take toward embracing your own growth strengthens your confidence and reduces the need for external measures of worth. This is not about ignoring inspiration or refusing to learn from others. It is about reclaiming the power of self-assessment, about allowing yourself to see your life through the lens of possibility instead of limitation. When you stop measuring yourself against the world, you start measuring yourself against your own potential. You start to honor your efforts, your vision, and your value. You begin to understand that your life, with all its unique strengths and imperfections, is already extraordinary. Comparison fades and self-respect grows. You realize that the only standard you need to meet is the one that honors your own capabilities and dreams. And in that realization, freedom and transformation await. If you constantly feel guilty for taking time for yourself, for resting, or for prioritizing your own needs, it is a powerful indication that you are undervaluing yourself. There is a quiet, insidious belief at work when guilt becomes your constant companion, that your worth is only measured by what you do for others, by how busy you are, or by how indispensable you appear. Every moment you spend caring for your own well-being is met with an internal reprimand, a whisper that you should be doing more, giving more, sacrificing more. The result is a life lived in exhaustion, a mind constantly second-guessing, and a heart that never fully embraces its own value. When you feel guilty for being human, you are denying the truth that self-care is not indulgence. It is survival, growth, and the foundation of meaningful impact. Consider the toll this takes on your life. Guilt drains energy, clouds judgment, and erodes confidence. It convinces you that your needs are less important than those around you, that your boundaries are selfish, and that asking for space or time is a moral failure. You end up overextending yourself, overcommitting, and constantly measuring your worth through action rather than through recognition of your inherent value. This pattern quietly reinforces the idea that you are only valuable when performing, producing, or giving, and that the real you, the person you are without obligation or output, is somehow insufficient. It steals joy, creativity, and motivation, leaving you in a state of perpetual fatigue and quiet resentment, not at others, but at yourself. Breaking this cycle begins with a conscious acknowledgement that your well-being is not optional. It is essential. Every moment you spend honoring your needs, setting boundaries, and allowing yourself rest is an act of self-respect and empowerment. It is a radical declaration that your life, your body, your mind, and your spirit are worth protecting. When you stop attaching guilt to self-care, you reclaim energy that has been silently siphoned away by fear and obligation. You begin to realize that by filling your own cup first, you are not taking from others. You are creating the capacity to give in ways that are sustainable, meaningful, and authentic. Psychologically, this shift is transformative. Research shows that setting boundaries and prioritizing personal needs strengthens self-esteem, reduces stress, and enhances overall performance. By valuing yourself, you teach your mind that your presence, choices, and actions are inherently worthy. You create an internal environment where confidence can flourish and external pressures lose their ability to dictate your sense of self. Every time you refuse to let guilt control your decisions, you reinforce a pattern of self-respect that becomes harder to break and impossible to ignore. This is a call to embrace your worth unapologetically. Allow yourself to rest without shame, to pursue your passions without hesitation, and to prioritize your own growth without guilt. Recognize that the energy you invest in yourself does not diminish your capacity to impact others, it amplifies it. By freeing yourself from the invisible chains of guilt, you step into a space of clarity, courage, and unstoppable potential. You begin to understand that valuing yourself is not selfish. It is the foundation for a life of purpose, strength, and fulfillment. And the moment you embrace this truth, the world responds, not by demanding less of you, but by finally allowing you to give from a place of abundance rather than depletion. If you often apologize for things that are not your fault, it is a subtle yet powerful signal that you are undervaluing yourself. Each unnecessary apology chips away at your confidence, convinces your mind that your presence, opinions, and actions are burdensome, and trains your subconscious to expect judgment even when none exists. Apologizing when you are not wrong is not humility. It is self-erasure. It is the quiet act of shrinking yourself to make others feel comfortable while you silently tell yourself that your feelings, choices, and boundaries are less important than maintaining approval. Over time, this behavior builds a foundation of doubt, anxiety, and diminished self-worth, eroding the belief that you are capable, deserving, and strong. Every time you default to "I'm sorry" when it is unnecessary, you teach yourself that your value is conditional, dependent on how others perceive you. This is a dangerous pattern because it undermines the internal validation that is essential for self-confidence. Your mind begins to associate existence itself with guilt, your voice with inconvenience, and your presence with liability. When this pattern becomes habitual, it becomes invisible. You may not even notice how often you undermine yourself. Yet each apology without reason carries weight, silently reinforcing the idea that you are not entitled to occupy space, to speak your truth, or to prioritize your own needs. The key to breaking this habit lies in awareness and intentional response. Recognize the moments when you apologize unnecessarily. Pause. Ask yourself, am I truly at fault, or am I just trying to ease discomfort? This simple act of mindfulness interrupts the automatic cycle of self-deprecation. It creates space to respond with clarity, confidence, and integrity rather than defaulting to self-subjugation. Over time, this rewires your brain to respect your own perspective, to honor your feelings, and to assert your presence unapologetically. The more you practice this, the more your mind begins to accept that your existence, your choices, and your boundaries are valid, and they deserve respect, both from yourself and from others. Psychological research supports the power of assertiveness in building self-esteem. When you reduce unnecessary apologies and communicate your thoughts and boundaries with confidence, you reinforce the internal narrative that you are competent, worthy, and capable of handling life's challenges. Each conscious refusal to apologize for being yourself strengthens your sense of autonomy, empowering you to engage with the world from a place of certainty rather than fear. Your mind begins to internalize the truth. You do not need permission to exist, and your voice is not a burden. It is a force that deserves to be heard. This practice is transformative because it recalibrates the way you see yourself. Every unapologetic statement, every boundary held, and every refusal to diminish your own presence sends a clear signal to your subconscious that you are valuable. It is not about arrogance or dismissiveness. It is about reclaiming the space you have always deserved. By learning to stand without unnecessary apology, you build resilience, courage, and self-respect. You begin to move through life unshaken by the need for constant external validation, confident in the knowledge that your worth is inherent, undeniable, and unshakable. This is a profound step toward fully embracing yourself, your potential, and the life that is waiting for you to claim it without compromise. If you frequently settle for less than you deserve, whether in relationships, work, or personal goals, it is a clear sign that you are undervaluing yourself. Every compromise that leaves you feeling small or overlooked reinforces the belief that your desires, needs, and dreams are negotiable. When you accept less than what aligns with your worth, you train your mind to believe that scarcity defines your life, that opportunities, respect, and love are limited, and that you must make do with whatever scraps come your way. This pattern quietly erodes confidence, leaving you trapped in a cycle where your potential is constrained by fear, doubt, and a lingering sense that you are not enough to demand more. The danger in settling is subtle but relentless. It manifests as quiet resignation, a voice inside that whispers, "This is fine," when it is not. You tell yourself that pushing for better is greedy, that asking for what you deserve is selfish, or that your dreams are unrealistic. Over time, this internal dialogue becomes the lens through which you view every decision. You start to anticipate disappointment, underestimate your capabilities, and accept mediocrity as the default. Your mind learns to tolerate limitations, and your spirit slowly forgets what it means to soar. Each moment spent accepting less than you deserve is a moment you tell yourself that your worth is optional, that your time, energy, and talent do not demand recognition, and that your life can be defined by compromise rather than by courage. To break free, you must first recognize the patterns where you allow yourself to settle. Ask yourself, am I compromising because it is genuinely beneficial, or am I doing it because I fear standing up for myself? Awareness alone is transformative, because it illuminates the moments where your undervaluation drives your choices. Once recognized, choose to act differently. Begin with small steps. Ask for what you deserve, set higher standards, and refuse situations that diminish your potential. Each act of self-assertion is a declaration that your needs and ambitions matter, that your presence is significant, and that your life is not designed to conform to the low expectations of fear or habit. Psychology supports this transformation. When individuals consistently pursue what aligns with their values and ambitions, self-esteem rises, motivation strengthens, and resilience expands. By refusing to settle, you are not being demanding. You are recalibrating your mind to recognize that your worth is not determined by external limitations, but by the courage and integrity with which you pursue your life. Every step you take toward claiming what you deserve rewires your mental narrative from scarcity to abundance, from self-doubt to self-assurance, from hesitation to bold action. Embracing this truth requires bravery because it challenges the comfort of the familiar. Standing firm for your worth may feel uncomfortable at first because it goes against patterns formed over years of undervaluation. Yet every decision to demand more, to honor your own standards, and to reject compromise strengthens the inner voice that has always been waiting to guide you, the voice that knows your life is meant for expansion, not limitation. When you consistently honor yourself, the world responds in kind. Doors open, opportunities multiply, and the life you once thought was out of reach begins to align with the reality of your potential. You learn that valuing yourself is not arrogance. It is the foundation for growth, fulfillment, and unstoppable momentum. If you constantly seek external validation, it is a powerful indicator that you are undervaluing yourself. Every like, every compliment, every nod of approval becomes a measure of your worth, as if your intrinsic value cannot exist independently of someone else's recognition. When you rely on others to confirm that you are enough, you give away the most important power you possess, the ability to define your own value. Your confidence becomes fragile, swinging with the opinions, judgments, and moods of people who do not carry the weight of your life, your struggles, or your dreams. This need for constant affirmation quietly convinces your mind that approval is survival, and that self-worth is conditional, not inherent. The danger of external validation is subtle but insidious. It teaches you to perform, to conform, and to dilute your true self in order to earn acceptance. You may bend your opinions, hide your talents, or minimize your desires just to maintain approval. Every time you shape yourself to fit someone else's expectations, you diminish the authentic power of your presence. Your identity becomes a reflection of other people's standards, rather than a declaration of your own worth. This creates anxiety, fear of judgment, and a chronic sense of inadequacy, because no matter how much validation you receive, it is never enough to fill the gap left by self-denial. Breaking free begins with a conscious choice to place your trust in yourself rather than in others. Recognize the moments when you seek reassurance, when you fish for compliments, or when you measure success by external recognition. Pause. Ask yourself, do I need their approval, or do I have the power to validate myself? The act of turning inward, of relying on your own judgment, is an exercise in reclaiming agency. It trains your mind to find certainty and value in your own perception, rather than in the fluctuating opinions of others. Over time, this practice rewires your self-concept, reinforcing the understanding that your worth is inherent, immutable, and independent of outside approval. Psychology supports the immense power of internal validation. Individuals who anchor their self-esteem in personal standards and internal recognition experience greater resilience, less anxiety, and higher motivation. By cultivating self-validation, you shift from a reactive life, one controlled by external forces, to a proactive existence, governed by clarity, purpose, and self-respect. Every decision you make based on your values, every accomplishment you celebrate without seeking permission, and every boundary you enforce without apology strengthens your internal compass. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust becomes a source of courage, freedom, and unstoppable momentum. This is a profound act of empowerment. It means that your life is no longer defined by applause, criticism, or comparison. You are no longer tethered to the approval of those who cannot see the full scope of your potential. Instead, you cultivate a deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing your value is inherent, undeniable, and independent of external validation. Each step away from seeking approval is a step toward freedom, self-respect, and personal mastery. When you anchor your worth within, the world cannot diminish it, and your actions are guided by clarity, not fear. You reclaim the power to live authentically, courageously, and fully. And in that reclamation, you find the liberation to pursue life on your own terms, unstoppable and unapologetic. If you often dismiss your achievements, it is a subtle but profound sign that you are undervaluing yourself, Every time you downplay your wins, you send a message to your mind that your efforts are insignificant, that your talent is ordinary, and that your progress does not matter. This habit quietly erodes self-confidence, leaving you trapped in a cycle where accomplishments are fleeting and the satisfaction of success is always just out of reach. By ignoring your own victories, you train yourself to see only what is lacking rather than what you have already built, achieved, and overcome. Your mind begins to measure worth not by growth, but by comparison. And in that shadow, even your most significant achievements feel inadequate. Dismissing accomplishments creates a dangerous internal environment. It breeds self-doubt, fosters insecurity, and convinces your subconscious that recognition is undeserved. You may feel a fleeting sense of relief by attributing your success to luck, timing, or the help of others, but beneath that lie patterns of undervaluation that slowly shape your self-image. Your accomplishments should fuel your confidence, yet when you ignore them, they become invisible. The power, courage, and dedication it took to reach milestones are erased, leaving only the perception that your life is ordinary and your potential is limited. This cycle keeps you from fully claiming your ability to grow, to excel, and to stand in your own light with pride. Reversing this pattern begins with acknowledgement. Take time to intentionally recognize your achievements, no matter how small they may seem. Reflect on the obstacles you overcame, the discipline you demonstrated, and the courage it took to keep going when challenges arose. By intentionally observing and naming your wins, you interrupt the cycle of dismissal. You teach your mind that progress is meaningful, that effort is valuable, and that your actions have impact. Every acknowledgement is a building block, reinforcing the internal belief that you are competent, capable, and deserving of recognition. Psychological research confirms that celebrating successes strengthens self-efficacy, the belief that you can produce desired outcomes. When you take ownership of your achievements, your brain begins to associate effort with positive results, reinforcing motivation and resilience. It rewires your internal narrative from one of insufficiency to one of competence, from doubt to certainty, and from hesitation to decisive action. Each time you claim your accomplishments, you reinforce the truth that your skills, your effort, and your perseverance are not only real, but worthy of pride and acknowledgement. Embracing your achievements is not arrogance. It is a courageous act of self-recognition. It affirms that your journey, your struggles, and your victories matter. By honoring your own progress, you create an internal compass that guides future decisions, actions, and ambitions. You cultivate confidence that is rooted not in comparison, external praise, or fleeting luck, but in the undeniable evidence of your own capabilities. Every achievement acknowledged, every milestone celebrated, and every success owned becomes a declaration: you are valuable, you are capable, and you are worthy of everything you have earned. When you fully embrace this truth, you move through life with an empowered clarity, unshaken by doubt and ready to pursue the next horizon with courage and unwavering self-respect. If you constantly compare yourself to others, it is a quiet but powerful sign that you are undervaluing yourself. Every glance at someone else's success, appearance, or achievements becomes a mirror in which you measure your own worth. This habit steals the joy of your own life because it anchors your value to someone else's journey, not your own. When you compare, you overlook your unique strengths, experiences, and potential. Your mind begins to believe that worth is relative, that you must match or exceed others to matter, and that your achievements are insignificant unless they outshine someone else's. This thinking quietly erodes confidence, leaving you feeling inadequate even in moments of genuine accomplishment. Comparison creates an illusion of scarcity. It convinces you that recognition, love, and success are limited resources, and that someone else's gain is your loss. Every time you measure yourself against others, you internalize a narrative of insufficiency. You may feel the pull of envy, the sting of inadequacy, and the heaviness of self-doubt. Even when you succeed, the satisfaction is muted because your mind shifts immediately to who is doing better, who has more, or who is further ahead. This cycle conditions your brain to seek validation externally, while ignoring the unique path and opportunities that belong only to you. Breaking free requires conscious attention to your inner dialogue. Start by noticing every moment you compare and asking yourself, does this help me grow, or does it diminish my perception of my own value? Every time you pause to shift focus from comparison to self-reflection, you reclaim a piece of your power. Begin to measure progress by your own growth, your own achievements, and your own standards. Recognize that your journey is not a competition, but a personal evolution. The distance you travel, the obstacles you overcome, and the skills you cultivate are unique markers of your potential and your strength. Psychology confirms that excessive social comparison diminishes self-esteem and fuels anxiety, while focusing on personal growth enhances motivation, resilience, and life satisfaction. By redirecting energy from measuring others to honoring yourself, you cultivate a mindset of abundance, where your value is inherent and your progress is meaningful regardless of anyone else's path. Each step you take to appreciate your own journey strengthens your inner foundation, builds confidence, and empowers you to act decisively toward your goals. You begin to understand that your worth is not borrowed from achievements or accolades. It is inherent, unchanging, and undeniable. Embracing your unique path is an act of courage. It requires rejecting the invisible standards set by others and trusting that your life, your timing, and your abilities are sufficient. When you stop comparing, you stop giving power to doubt, fear, and insecurity. You reclaim the freedom to pursue what matters most to you, to celebrate your growth without apology, and to recognize that every step you take is meaningful. By anchoring your sense of value within, you release the need for external validation. Embrace your authentic self and step fully into a life where confidence, courage, and self-respect define your actions. You begin to see that you are not behind, you are not lacking, and you are not defined by anyone else's journey. You are enough exactly as you are, and every moment you honor your path brings you closer to the life you were meant to claim. If you find yourself constantly apologizing for who you are, even for things that are not your fault, it is a clear signal that you are undervaluing yourself. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your confidence, teaching your mind that your presence is a burden, your opinions are unwelcome, and your needs are secondary. When you over-apologize, you reinforce the belief that you are not fully entitled to your space, your voice, or your boundaries. This habit silently shapes your identity, embedding doubt and insecurity into the foundation of how you see yourself. The more you apologize for existing, the further you distance yourself from the person you are capable of becoming. Excessive apologies often stem from fear of judgment, fear of conflict, and fear of rejection. Your mind interprets every minor misstep or perceived inconvenience as a threat to your value. You preemptively minimize yourself, hoping to avoid disapproval, yet in doing so, you weaken your self-respect. Each apology that is not necessary becomes a silent agreement that your comfort, time, and presence are less important than the comfort of others. Over time, this constant self-diminishing behavior conditions your mind to accept invisibility, leaving your potential unclaimed and your voice unheard. Breaking free begins with awareness. Recognize each time you apologize reflexively and pause to consider whether it is truly warranted. Reflect on whether your apology is serving your growth or simply feeding a pattern of self-doubt. Replace automatic apologies with conscious expressions of accountability when appropriate, and cultivate the courage to simply exist without seeking approval for your presence. By asserting your right to occupy space, voice opinions, and express boundaries without guilt, you train your mind to respect itself and to recognize your inherent value. Research in psychology shows that over-apologizing is linked to lower self-esteem and a higher susceptibility to anxiety and stress. Conversely, setting healthy boundaries and asserting your needs without guilt fosters self-respect, confidence, and resilience. Every moment you choose to stand firm in your worth without unnecessary apology strengthens your internal sense of power and communicates to the world and to yourself that you are deserving of respect, consideration, and recognition. You are not an inconvenience, and your existence is not something that needs constant validation. Embracing this shift requires courage, but it is transformative. Every time you resist the impulse to apologize unnecessarily, you reinforce a new truth. You are enough as you are, your presence matters, and your voice is valid. You cultivate a mental environment where confidence flourishes, where decisions are made with clarity, and where your actions reflect the value you know yourself to possess. By stepping into life without a perpetual sense of guilt, you create space for authentic connections, bold decisions, and a life defined not by fear but by self-respect, integrity, and courage. Every conscious choice to honor yourself over automatic humility rewrites your internal narrative. It tells your mind that your worth is inherent, unshakable, and undeniable. You begin to operate from a place of strength rather than fear, from presence rather than apology, and from self-respect rather than self-doubt. Each day you choose this path, you grow closer to the version of yourself that recognizes your true value, commands respect without seeking permission, and moves through the world with the quiet but unstoppable force of someone who knows they are worthy. You are not too much. You are not less than. You are exactly as you should be. And every step toward embracing that truth is a victory that builds the foundation for your greatest life. If you constantly downplay your achievements, no matter how significant they are, it is a signal that you are undervaluing yourself. Every time you minimize your successes, you send a message to your mind that what you have accomplished is never enough. You begin to believe that your victories are either unworthy of celebration or merely the result of luck, timing, or external factors beyond your control. This habit quietly erodes your sense of competence and self-worth, keeping you trapped in a cycle where your contributions feel invisible, even to yourself. By refusing to acknowledge your accomplishments, you deny yourself the recognition and validation that fuels confidence and inspires further growth. Downplaying your achievements often stems from fear that praise will make you appear arrogant, or that recognition will expose you to expectations you feel unprepared to meet. Your mind convinces you that modesty is safer than self-acknowledgement, yet this false humility undermines your power. Every time you dismiss your effort, you reinforce the idea that you are incapable of greatness or that your efforts are never sufficient. Over time, this pattern conditions your brain to undervalue your potential, making it harder to take risks, seize opportunities, and pursue your dreams with conviction. Breaking free begins with conscious recognition. Start by writing down your accomplishments, both big and small, and read them without judgment. Notice how much effort, skill, and courage each required. Celebrate the progress you have made, the obstacles you have overcome, and the resilience you have demonstrated. By consciously acknowledging your achievements, you train your mind to recognize your worth, shifting the narrative from scarcity to abundance, from self-doubt to self-empowerment. Every acknowledgement becomes a seed of confidence, growing into a mindset that understands your capabilities are real, tangible, and worthy of pride. Psychological research shows that recognizing and celebrating achievements strengthens self-esteem, motivation, and resilience. When you validate your own efforts, you create a feedback loop that encourages growth and reinforces a sense of personal power. By contrast, minimizing accomplishments fosters feelings of inadequacy, reduces ambition, and increases susceptibility to anxiety and depression. Every time you give yourself credit for what you have done, you strengthen your inner foundation, making it easier to take bold actions and embrace challenges without fear. Embracing your achievements requires courage and honesty. It means facing the part of yourself that doubts, fears judgment, and downplays success, and choosing instead to acknowledge your efforts and results openly. Every time you do this, you reclaim power over your narrative, affirming that your life, your actions, and your victories matter. You begin to understand that confidence is not arrogance, and self-recognition is not selfishness. It is a necessary act of self-respect and empowerment that fuels your ability to grow, contribute, and inspire. By honoring your achievements, you lay the groundwork for transformation. You teach your mind that your efforts are meaningful, that your growth is real, and that your potential is boundless. Each acknowledgement strengthens your inner voice, turning self-doubt into determination, fear into courage, and hesitation into action. You begin to operate from a place of certainty, knowing that your contributions matter and that your life is filled with value. When you stop diminishing your own accomplishments, you step fully into your power, your purpose, and the extraordinary life you were meant to create. You are capable, you are worthy, and every achievement you honor brings you closer to becoming the person you are truly meant to be. If you find yourself constantly seeking approval before taking action, it is a sign that you are undervaluing yourself. Every time you wait for someone else to validate your choices, you are telling your mind that your judgment is insufficient, that your instincts are unreliable, and that your worth depends on external affirmation. This habit quietly saps your confidence and erodes your independence, chaining your potential to the opinions of others. The more you rely on approval, the more you limit yourself, shrinking your opportunities and muting the strength of your own voice. You begin to operate from fear rather than conviction, always cautious, always uncertain, and never fully empowered to act decisively. Seeking approval often comes from a deep-rooted belief that your value is conditional. You feel that if others do not agree with you, admire you, or support you, then your efforts are meaningless. Your mind equates acceptance with safety, respect, and belonging, yet this dependency undermines self-trust. Every moment you postpone action to gain approval teaches your brain that your instincts are secondary, that your confidence is negotiable, and that your potential is always up for debate. Over time, this pattern reinforces self-doubt, making it harder to take risks, make bold decisions, and step into the life you are capable of creating. Breaking free begins with recognizing that your approval is enough. Your instincts, your perspective, and your desires carry intrinsic value. When you act from your own judgment, you train your mind to trust itself. Each choice you make independently strengthens your confidence, reinforces your self-worth, and builds an internal compass that does not rely on external validation. By honoring your own perspective, you begin to reclaim authority over your life, liberating yourself from the subtle but powerful chains of constant approval seeking. Psychological studies show that self-validation is a critical factor in resilience, motivation, and personal fulfillment. People who rely less on external approval develop stronger self-efficacy, make decisions more confidently, and pursue goals with persistence even in the face of doubt or criticism. On the other hand, chronic approval seeking is linked to higher anxiety, lower self-esteem, and difficulty asserting boundaries. When you act with self-trust, your brain adapts, reinforcing patterns of courage, clarity, and internal strength. You begin to operate from certainty, not hesitation, from empowerment, not fear. This transformation requires courage. It means confronting the part of yourself that fears judgment, that questions your worth, and that doubts your capacity to navigate life independently. It means choosing action over hesitation, conviction over doubt, and self-trust over reliance on external voices. Each step you take without seeking permission, each decision you make guided by your own wisdom, rewires your mind to embrace autonomy, power, and clarity. You are not diminished by acting without approval. You are liberated. Every choice you make independently strengthens the belief that you are capable, deserving, and enough on your own. You begin to understand that the opinions of others do not define your value, and that your instincts are trustworthy. As you practice this, hesitation fades, fear loses its grip, and your life expands to match the depth of your courage. Acting without waiting for approval teaches you that your voice, your presence, and your decisions are inherently powerful. You step into life as a creator rather than a reactor, shaping your destiny with confidence and claiming the extraordinary potential that has always been yours. Your judgment matters, your choices matter. And by trusting yourself, you set the foundation for a life that is unshakably yours. If you find yourself constantly apologizing, even when you haven't done anything wrong, it is a signal that you are undervaluing yourself. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your self-respect, training your mind to believe that your presence is an imposition, that your needs are secondary, and that your existence requires constant justification. Over time, this habit reinforces a quiet but powerful message that your feelings, opinions, and boundaries are less important than those of others. Each sorry you offer without cause conditions your mind to shrink in the face of conflict, uncertainty, or discomfort, limiting your capacity to assert yourself and claim your space in the world. Apologizing excessively is often rooted in fear, the fear of rejection, criticism, or disapproval. You may believe that maintaining harmony requires silencing your own voice, putting others' comfort above your own, or minimizing your needs. But when this becomes automatic, it creates an internal imbalance. You start to measure your worth by how little you disrupt others, how agreeable you are, or how much you can bend without breaking. Your value becomes conditional, dependent on the tolerance and perception of those around you, rather than the inherent worth that exists simply because you exist. Reclaiming your power starts with awareness. Every time you catch yourself apologizing unnecessarily, pause and ask, do I truly need to say this, or am I trying to lessen my presence? When you begin to recognize these patterns, you start to see the subtle ways in which you undervalue yourself. Your words are powerful, your boundaries are valid, and your existence is not a burden. By noticing this, you create a moment of choice, an opportunity to respond from strength rather than habit, to assert your worth without guilt, and to stand firmly in your own truth. Psychological research shows that setting boundaries and speaking with confidence strengthens self-esteem, reduces stress, and improves overall emotional well-being. Conversely, habitual over-apologizing is linked to anxiety, diminished self-efficacy, and feelings of inadequacy. Each apology that is offered without necessity reinforces the brain's perception of weakness, while each conscious decision to hold your ground rewires your mind to embrace courage, self-respect, and inner authority. This is not arrogance. It is recognition of your own value and the refusal to diminish yourself to make others comfortable. Changing this pattern requires bravery. It means acknowledging that your comfort, your needs, and your presence matter as much as anyone else's. It means pausing before the words leave your lips and asking whether they serve truth or habit. It means embracing the discomfort of asserting yourself and trusting that you have the right to occupy space without apology. Every time you act without unwarranted guilt, you strengthen your self-respect, your confidence, and your sense of worth. The power of this change is profound. By reducing unnecessary apologies, you send a signal to your own mind and to the world: you are enough, your voice is valid, and your boundaries are non-negotiable. Fear begins to lose its grip, hesitation fades, and you start to operate from authority rather than anxiety. You begin to understand that self-respect is not optional. It is essential. Each conscious choice not to apologize unnecessarily reinforces your belief in your own worth, allowing you to step into life with courage, clarity, and unshakable confidence. Your presence is not an inconvenience. Your voice is not a burden. You are worthy simply because you exist, and by honoring that truth, you lay the foundation for a life of strength, respect, and limitless potential. Do you ever notice how easily you defer to others, even when your own opinion matters just as much? How often do you find yourself holding back ideas, staying quiet in meetings, or agreeing with decisions you don't fully support simply to avoid conflict or discomfort? This subtle pattern is one of the most common signs that you are undervaluing yourself. When you consistently place others' preferences above your own, you signal both to yourself and to the world that your perspective is less important, your voice less worthy, and your presence negotiable. Each small surrender may feel harmless in the moment, but over time, these compromises accumulate, quietly shrinking your sense of self and eroding your confidence. Recognizing this behavior is the first step toward transformation. Every time you choose silence over expression, you give your power away. You teach your mind that your thoughts, feelings, and ideas are optional, secondary, and less valuable than those around you. It becomes a cycle. The more you defer, the less you trust yourself. The less you trust yourself, the more likely you are to defer again. This pattern not only affects your self-esteem, it influences the way others perceive you. People often take their cues from the way you assert or fail to assert yourself. When you consistently downplay your input, the world begins to mirror that behavior back, reinforcing the belief that your contributions are not essential. Breaking this cycle requires courage and conscious effort. It begins with noticing the moments when you automatically step back. Pause and ask yourself, am I expressing what I truly believe, or am I silencing myself for convenience? Awareness alone creates an opening for change. Each small act of speaking up, of sharing your authentic opinion, sends a message to your mind and body your voice matters. Each deliberate choice to stand firm in your perspective rewires your confidence, teaching your brain that asserting yourself is safe, acceptable, and powerful. Psychological studies show that self-expression and assertiveness are closely tied to well-being. People who actively share their opinions, set boundaries, and communicate honestly experience higher levels of self-esteem, reduce stress, and stronger resilience. When you allow yourself to be seen and heard, you reinforce the truth that you are capable, competent, and deserving of respect. Conversely, habitual silence reinforces self-doubt and keeps you trapped in a loop of undervaluing your own contributions. The transformation is not immediate, and it does not require grand gestures. It is found in small, consistent choices, offering your ideas in a meeting, voicing your preference in a conversation, refusing to agree simply to keep the peace. Each action compounds, strengthening your sense of authority and self-worth. It becomes a habit of presence rather than absence, of influence rather than withdrawal. Your opinions carry weight. Your perspective matters. You are not less important because someone else has a different view. By choosing to speak up, you honor your intellect, your experiences, and your unique insight. The courage to assert yourself without apology is a declaration to the world and to your own mind. I am here. I have value. My voice is not negotiable. Each time you embrace this truth, your internal power grows, fear diminishes, and the life you create becomes richer, fuller, and more aligned with who you are meant to be. You are no longer a silent observer of your own life. You are an active participant, claiming space, influence, and respect simply because you deserve it. Have you ever noticed how often you apologize for things that aren't your fault? How quickly you say sorry, even when you've done nothing wrong, just to smooth over a moment, to keep the peace, or to avoid judgment. This habit, subtle as it may seem, is a quiet thief of self-worth. Each unnecessary apology chips away at your confidence, sending a message to your mind that your presence, your choices, and even your mistakes are burdensome. Over time, this constant self-effacement creates a deep internalized belief that you are less deserving than others, that your needs are secondary, and that your value must be proven through constant accommodation.